Hello, Western Civilization 105 class. Um, I just wanted to make another video just to give some extra clarification on expectations and ideas about the class. Um, I'll try to make it as short as possible, but at the same time, I want to make this video the one that really helps kind of um, things easier and more understandable if there's any kind of question in regard to the work and expectations and all of that. And then there's a few other things that got brought up by several students that I wanted to also kind of help remove some confusion on. So let's get to it. First of all, when I was doing these lectures originally, I I had received the class almost a few days before the semester started. And I never taught Western Civ before when this first occurred when I made my videos. And I instantly utilized a textbook and they had a PowerPoint with it. And it all went together quite nicely. Now, the textbook itself that I used, they don't publish it anymore. So I've had to use other textbooks. And when I use those other textbooks, I make sure that I use a chapter that has the information that correlates with the same lectures. But what happens is for example, I believe many students mentions that I was talking about chapter 15. And if you look at your reading link, it says chapter 7. That's the, that's why that is happening. So I apologize for not making that more clear and for that confusion. What I want you to know is if you look at the link for chapter 7 in the reading link, it talks about the religious wars. It all works harmoniously with the information that we're covering for this week. So I hope that makes sense to you all there. Okay, so again, I apologize though for that confusion. One other thing, I'm going to mention this later too. Canvas. Um, it'd be too long to explain. At some point, I really need to figure out that when I've had old assignments that I changed around and I don't use the old assignments, it's a little bit confusing on how to get rid of them without me potentially getting rid of other assignments or getting rid of the wrong assignment setup. So I just have left it alone. And what I have is a graveyard of old assignments that just still show up sometimes in the grade book. So ultimately, this is what you need to know. Uh, you'll always just only need to worry about assignments that are in the module for each week, okay? And maybe I'll even get this resolved by the end of the semester. But if you see any assignments for a given week that you're looking in the grade book and you're like, was I supposed to do that? Don't worry about any of that. Just worry each week, look in the module, see what your assignments are there. That's all you have to worry about, okay? So I hope that helps with that. Um, all right, so let me just kind of go into a little bit of just expectations with discussions, video notes, Sunday essays, okay? For discussions, usually it's going to be a 15-point discussion. And this is how it's going to work. You're going to see the discussion that I'm asking you to write on. You're going to write on that. And when you make that post, I'm going to count 5 points in. You have to reply on 2 other students' posts. I see you reply on another student. I add another 5 points. I see that you replied to another student. That's 15 points. That's how you get full points for participating in the discussion. And so what you need to remember though also is that sometimes students will address the post for the discussion and they'll forget to reply right away, or they only reply to one other student, and you might have time to still do it, right? Like you're not the due date hasn't been come up yet, but then sometimes students forget to go back and make sure that they've done everything that they need to do to get the full point. So don't forget that part, okay? And remember, if that does happen to you, remember for late work, you have to, when it's past 8 hours of the due date, you have to contact me and ask if you can turn in late work. You do not do it and then ask me. Because if you do that, you automatically, the work is rejected forever and you don't get points. You don't send me the work and then ask. You have to ask first before you send in late work. And most of the time I'm going to let you do it, but I need you to follow. I have a routine. I have rules. You just got to follow that. Okay. You don't need to be embarrassed about why you have late work either. Just, you got to communicate with me. So keep that in mind. Okay. Video notes. What's going on with all these notes, all these videos? Well, first of all, if you're in a face-to-face class, you're going to spend hours during the week in the classroom. I give you roughly same amount of time for the whole week put into the videos. That's what I'm required to do. I'm required to give you as much work as you would if you were in the classroom. And I think that by having videos other than just me, I mean, even when I teach in person, I will sometimes throw up a video to show with the class. It helps mix things up, gives you some visuals, and so on. Okay, so but uh, the video notes are to prove that you've watched the videos, because you're not going to watch the videos unless you are required to demonstrate that you did, right? Not because you don't necessarily want to take the class serious or work hard, but we're all really busy, and if you don't have to be held accountable to the videos, it's just not going to happen. So I want to see video notes that demonstrate that you actually watched that video. And so this also leads me to something else. Look, you can put a video and uh, you could say, okay, Mussolini was a fascist and he was an Axis power against the United States. But that can be known by from anything, from anyone, anywhere. I want to see notes that reflect something that genuinely comes from what the video shows, and it's beyond just something you could just know from talking to your grandpa or grandma or looking at Wikipedia, right? Okay, so just please keep that in mind. I don't grade these too hard, but I want it should look like you're watching my videos that I'm posting. Okay, that's what it should feel like, that right away. I'm just gonna look at this, and usually I can tell if that's what's happening or not. And so that's the point of those. Now, from here, let me transition into Sunday essays and how these can complement each other. What I advise, I do not require, but what I advise you to do is, before you start watching the videos and before you start writing the video notes, look at what the Sunday essay is. Keep in mind, if I say between 1 and 2 pages, 1 is sufficient. But if you're going to give me 1 page, I want it to have everything in it that's required. Okay, right? Now, so again, going back to this, you look at the Sunday essay topic first. And then when you watch the videos, you write notes that will complement or go into your Sunday essay. Remember, this is not required. This is my recommendation, okay? And you're not going to get considered a plagiarizing from me or anything like that if you're utilizing your notes and you're incorporating them into your Sunday essay. I'm actually encouraging you to do that, and that way you're kind of, it's all kind of working together in your favor and helping you utilize that. The other thing that helps you do is figure out where the citations would go. So this leads me to really want to talk about the citation and why I want it the way it is. Okay, so I've already shown you an example, and there's parentheses, okay, for them. Now look, there are different citation requirements depending on your field when you get into universities. Okay? So keep in mind that a history major uses Chicago style. When I was at MJC, I took English 101 and all we did was MLA. When I transferred to UC Santa Cruz, I never used MLA again. And I never heard of Chicago style until I got there. And I was overwhelmed and I was surprised. And they were so strict about how to do Chicago style. And you better do it right, this whole citation process. This is the most annoying part of history classes is this precision of the citation thing. Now, what I wanted to do for all of you here is instead of you getting trained in a particular style, I want you to understand the concept of a citation. I want this class to be an opportunity for you to really get good at using the citations, but understanding the concept of it. Okay. So look, let's put it, let me give illustrations. So you have a friend that comes up to you and your friend says, hey, don't trust so-and-so because they steal and they're in your circle of friends. And this person comes to parties and they steal stuff from people's house. So what do? You say, where did you get this information from? Right? Is this just gossip? Or where's it coming from? What's the source of this information? And they could say, oh, I saw it. Or they could say, my brother saw it. Or they could say, my brother's friend saw it. And then all of a sudden you start realizing the information, this sounds like gossip. This is so-and-so said, so-and-so saw, whatever. Or is the person who's telling you this known to be someone who starts division in friend circles? Kind of they stir stuff up. And are they a reliable person? Are they known to be reliable? They may be known to be very reliable. Is the person that they're referring to very reliable? In other words, you're hearing this story and it's important and significant, but is it true? And how reliable is the information? And where are we getting this information from? That's what essay citations are about, okay? If you're like the professor who's reading your essay wants to know that you've written something, okay, I see that you've written this. Well, where did you get this information from? Now, in my class, you can only use the sources within the module for each week. That's from the reading or the videos. And the videos can be my lectures or documentary or another professor's lecture that's within a module. And so keep this in mind too. You are coming to this class, you don't know anything about this information. Like, let's say, who is Ivan Grozny, Ivan the Terrible, as he's known in the West. Maybe you don't know anything about this guy. You study it. Now you're going to write about him, let's say. Well, you're going to put it in your own words. Like, let's say if you have a friend that says, can you give me a quick synopsis of the Odyssey, the new movie on the Odyssey? Can you tell me how it starts, the middle of it, the end? Give me some little basic details, okay? So you're gonna, your citation is the actual film itself that you have, like in conversation. I'm your professor. I want to see, like, okay, did the information you're getting, are you mixing it with information from the documentary and the reading that we did, or is this just the documentary? Where did you get this information from? That's what a paraphrase is. And most of your essay should be in a paraphrase. So that's the concept of the citation. And the citation should have information in it that I can immediately know where to go. If it's the textbook, if there's a page number or a chapter, I should be able to know exactly where to go with that. If it's a documentary, where to go with that. An article in the essay, you could put a link, the name of the link to the article, okay? But it should be really clear where I would need to go. I shouldn't have to be confused about where you got this information from. That's the important part, and relatively easy for me to find it, okay? So look, when I grade an essay, and also I need a date somewhere, some dates grounding it in a time period. Like what are we talking about here, right? So when I grade, the first thing I do is I look for the citations in parentheses just to see, is this essay using citations? And by the way, also after a direct quote, so it'd be after a paraphrase when you put something in your own words, or after a direct quote. If you do that, the majority of the essay should be in paraphrase, but sometimes you'll have direct quotes. That's where citations are. Do I recognize those citations as sources that we used in the class for that week? That's also what I'm looking at. Okay, you've done that. Great. Now I look for some dates. Is there some dates anywhere? What time period are we dealing with? Okay. After that, then I read your essay and ask if you're addressing what I asked you to write about. And I usually then give full points. I'm not a hard grader, but I am going to be a stickler on those things. So the citations have to be within the essay then. I do not ask you to put a works cited at the end of the essay. And again, this also means what? You can't use AI to help you write this. Okay? You have to actually do this on your own. And it needs to read like something on your own, and it needs to read like it's coming from the content. And I know the content of my class. I have seen students try to give me fake AI stuff and then try to put in citations which aren't going with the information. Okay, and if you start trying to do that to me, that kind of thing, we don't do the plagiarism thing with me. Okay, so uh, let me make that clear. Now look, I'll be honest, I'm a late bloomer. I struggled with these essays. I struggled at MJC doing them. I struggled at UC Santa Cruz, and I struggled when I went to go get my MA in grad school at Stan State. And I really didn't get the idea of them properly until late in my education. It's so weird. But this is what happens. I mean, look, this is where I struggled. But so I'm trying to help and make it easier for all of you to really just understand, like, this is the concept. This is what it's for. And keep in mind, too, you don't have to make this super elaborate. You just focus on addressing what is asked of you. That's it. Keeping it simple and then reiterating that information, making an argument based on whatever the topic is, and having your sources laid out. And that's it. And that's how this is going to work. Okay. And there's no way out of this. That's what you're going to have to do for this class. Okay. And like I said, if you transfer to a university and you're a history major, there'll be much more demands on the precision of your citations. I'm not making you do that. Okay. So having said that, just a few little things about our information, and I'll just end it there. I mentioned this earlier. I just really want to emphasize the Ivan the Terrible documentary is a great documentary, but it's also trying to be sensationalist. They say the most evil men in the world. I mean, there's a lot of evil men and women. There's evil people in the world, and in the West, he is called Ivan the Terrible. That's why I just leave it at that. That's what he's known as. But Grozny is more like formidable. I do address that, but I've talked to Slavic speaking our people from Ukraine, Russia. They all know who this guy is. But Grozny is more like saying terrible. That word is a negative, purely negative word in English. It's more like you're strong, you're tough, you're fearsome, but there's a better word that would be used. I think formidable would be the better one in the way it's conveyed to people in the local in the language in Russian. So, for example, okay, um, and also keep in mind that in history there's a lot of Russians that think he was a great guy. He's one of their founders. I mean, we talked about the complications of American founders. Everybody's got founders with some complications. They sometimes look at different aspects of what he accomplished and don't necessarily always focus on some of the things that are highlighted, which are true in the documentary. So when I show a documentary as well, keep in mind, um, I'm having you look at it for different sets of reasons. It doesn't mean that I 100% agree with exactly how they're putting it together, but I think that it's factual enough, it's good enough to put for this class. And I want you to, kind of be critical, or just think through some of the material that's shown. Overall, I think it's a it's a good documentary. It's just a little sensationalist sometimes, and but not enough to just say that it's false, right? Okay. Um, so I just wanted to point that out. I think that that's mainly good on what I needed to mention. So look, I hope you're having a nice start to this class. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any more questions.